there's three traits that people, then they looked at, because they were trying to find habits of highly successful people. And when they actually pulled apart, it's not, and I hope I'm not contradicting anything, but there's people who are really rich who wake up really late and work really late. And there's people really rich who wake up really, really early. And there's people who are really rich who eat really healthy. And there's people really rich who drink Coca-Cola and eat French fries every day. And so there's all these things that we want to make as truths, but there's easy examples that counter those things. So it's like, what are the few things that are true, or at least that seem to be present in all of the situations? And so the three common traits that they had found were, one, that people have a superiority complex. They believe they're better than others, and they believe that they deserve more than everyone else does, and that they can accomplish big goals, right? So they have a bigger vision because they believe they deserve it, or whatever it is, that they were able to identify that. The second thing that they were able to identify is that they had crippling insecurity, which is a paradox of paradoxes. They feel they'll never be enough, and they'll always be measured against the things that they've achieved. And so you've got this crazy dynamic between they think they're better than everyone, they think they deserve more, they want to go after this big hill, and at the same time, they fear they'll never be good enough, and they'll never actually achieve it, and they actually suck. And then the third piece, which kind of adds the beautiful mix of this, is impulse control. And so they're able to control their actions and focus on a single thing for an extended period of time. And so if you put those three things together, it's like you've got a big goal that's pulling you this way, you've got this big fear that you are running away from, and then you've got impulse control to keep you focused on the one thing that matters.
Yes.
And if you do that, if you are the type of person who has those traits, then you are very likely to be successful. If you can wait a year, you can make a ton of money. Like if you can do something for 12 months, you can not need for financial goodness pretty much for the rest of your life. I'm not saying you're gonna be hella rich, right, but you're not gonna need for anything if you can wait 12 months. If you can wait a decade, you're going to be above the 1%. If you can wait 10 years for an outcome, be able to do the doing without seeing the result for 10 years, you will be able to be above most achievement of most people. And if you can wait a lifetime and you don't even need to see the result of your doing this, even while you are alive, but know that it may get done after you pass, then I believe that you can change the world. And I mean that. What amount of action would it be unreasonable for me not to be successful? And so for me, it's like, I believe that if you do 10,000 cold calls, you'll get better. Like it would be unreasonable for you not to be good. Like after that level of effort. If you run, if you take half your paycheck every month or a third of your paycheck every month and you say, I'm going to advertising university, which is I'm going to spend money actually advertising, trying to get people to click on this thing and give me their name and phone number. If you go and you spend that amount of money on actually advertising, after a year, after 2 years, you'll probably be pretty good. Especially if you join a community of other people who are doing the same thing, right? You got mentors who have done and give you frameworks that you can just work off so you can shortcut your path to success. It becomes unreasonable that you wouldn't be more successful in the future than you are today. And so I like thinking about things in terms of directionally correct rather than will I hit it or not. Right? I think there's so many binaries because it's easy psychologically for us to say yes, no, honest, dishonest, etc., successful, not successful. But it makes making decisions really hard because you're like, is this the path for me? Is this the product, the business I'm going to start? Whereas well, if I started something, I would be more likely to be successful than if I did not start anything. With 20 hours of focused effort, most people can be pretty decent at something, whether it's guitar, it's singing, even cold calling. If you actually cold called for 20 hours, focused effort, you'd be decent. But most people spend years waiting to do the first hour.
Whoa.
And so it's like, how can I decrease that action threshold and get someone to just embrace the suck? And so it's like, how can I normalize no's? So it's like, if I'm teaching somebody to sell, it's like, dude, I need you to get 100 no's, all right? Just get 100 no's for me. I don't care about the yes, just get 100 no's. And the thing is all of a sudden, if the no becomes the goal, then they realize that it's about the process and not the outcome, and then they will become better salespeople because they stop being afraid of it. The same thing like for training a salesperson, I want them to hear the gasp, right? Which is like you say a price over the phone. Everyone's afraid of saying the price. And it's like, dude, if you didn't get a gasp, you didn't go high enough.
Right.
And they're like, what? I'm like, oh, you failed. Terrible sale. They didn't gasp. They're like, really? And so then it flips it and it becomes a point of pride. It's like, oh, I got her, you should hear the gasp on this one. And so all of a sudden they stop being afraid. We normalize, we do like exposure therapy on the things that people are most afraid of. And I hope that with all the stuff that we do, that we can do that in a microwave for at least a handful of people. So they just start doing and realize that they're gonna gain perspective, and the light of their knowledge will give them the next foot. But the thing is, they're stuck on the first one trying to pick the first path when they have no idea what they're doing. I thought of this frame, which was, I call it the grandfather frame, but waking up, if I went into a time machine, I'm 85 years old, right? I'm like close to dying, a little creaky, I've got tons of money, not a lot of time. And I somehow sacrifice all the money I have just to be my age again. And so I wake up in the morning and I'm my 85-year-old self living through my 30-year-old body. And thinking through that frame of how I would wake up and be like, oh, my elbow's donor. Oh, look, I have muscles. I haven't had those in forever, right? And I'm like, oh, Layla, she's so young. I remember she used to look like this. And I look outside and I'm like, man, this is Vegas before they did all the helicopters and the flying cars. And look at it. God, it's changed so much, right? And then you walk downstairs, you're like, man, coffee. Look at these mugs. Remember we had mugs. Isn't that crazy? And so it's this weird frame where it just drills you, it just pegs you to the present. And you get to experience the current state from a future state for the first time. And so it's been one of the things that's been really profound for me in terms of like dealing with stressors, with getting into like, when I get into one of these, like, I'm like, hold on, I'm 85, I'm waking up. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I remember when I used to stress about these business things. I was like, it works out, it's fine. And if it doesn't, who cares? I was like, I'm gonna be 85, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna give all my money away. Who cares? And I'm like, but isn't this cool that I'm like, look at me, all trying to play the game. I'm like, you got it, bud. And so it's like, it gets me into this really interesting place where I can feel like I can get above myself in the game and just be like, whew. And I think for a lot of people, if they can, those frames have served me very well. And I hope that other people can use those in some way in their life to do stuff that they weren't otherwise going to do.